Hey everyone, Dan Saavedra from MergeYourData here, and this is day 10 of the 90-day YouTube sprint on signal analytics. And so today we're going to be going over how much effort should you put into signals. We're going to be specifically focusing on B2B companies here because that's the type of clients that we serve. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, I've been listening to these episodes and hearing about signal analytics and signals for a while now, but how much time should I put into it? What level of signals should I use depending on my organization? And so we're going to go into that today. And so before we get started here, like I said, my name is Dan Saavedra. I'm going to click out of this. I'm the founder of MergeYourData. We're a signal analytics firm. And so this is the stuff that we do with our clients and our prospects. And so we're bringing these learnings to these videos in the 90-day sprint series. We saw a signal from our end that showed that YouTube organic was a potential channel for us that would work, a potential medium that would work with the right messaging. And so we are doing an experiment with a signal to see if it leads to any results. I've been working in data for 12 years at various levels. So who is this presentation and video for? This is for RevOps leadership, marketing leadership, and sales leadership at organizations, because it's really going to be helping you think about the strategy of using signals in the organization and how you can plan and man the projects to build out signals and signal analytics for your company. And so it's really for these types of positions at any level, small to very large. And we're going to be talking about each specific size company and what type of signals you should be looking into, the depth of them, and stuff like that. So why you would want to listen to this, or why you should care about it, or why you might care about it, is because you want clarity, but you have limited resources. So if you are working in a company, most likely you have limited resources. We don't just have an unlimited budget. It's not 2021 anymore. And so you want the clarity and the data to make decisions, to guide strategy and help the company grow, but you don't have an unlimited budget to do that. And so this talk will help you understand what signals, what level of signals can give you clarity at the level that you're at, and you'll be able to do that with limited resources. 2, data projects have been black holes in the past, black holes of resources in terms of time, money, everything. At the end of the day, you end up not getting any value out of these data projects. They just seem to keep getting expanded and extended and never really delivering anything that you can look back on and say, wow, that was actually a really, really useful data project. We got X amount of growth out of it. So it's not the case with all data projects, but there's a good chance that you've been facing that feeling here. So this video will help with that. And last but not least, you're not sure what is causing issues. So you might be missing targets. You might not be on track to hit the amount of revenue that you're looking for. And so when you dig into things, you're just not sure exactly what to pinpoint and work on in order to improve your results and your performance for your organization. And so this discussion around signals at different sizes or different size companies and the depth of using the signals and what that would take is going to help answer these questions. And so before we get into this, and my chair keeps sliding down. That's what I get for picking up a chair on the side of the road. Before we get into this, we just need to remember that what we're really looking here for is the Pareto principle. So we're trying to find the things that provide the majority of results for our business and really focus in on those to see if we can expand them and produce a bigger pie overall, or if there's maybe something that we've been missing that is producing great results and we want to dig a little bit deeper and see what's going on to see the 2080 of that 2080. And so that's what we just want to keep in mind here, the Pareto principle. So what is size? Before we even get into the depths of this conversation, it's a pretty broad term. Depending on how you perceive it, you could be a medium-sized company, but you can feel small because your specific team and the budget and the relevance of signals in terms of marketing, sales, and RevOps has a very small portion of the company. You might be 95% delivery. Obviously, that's a very rare case. And so you might feel like a really, really micro organization. Might be flipped the other way. You might be someone or part of a company that is 60% sales and marketing, headcount, budget, everything. And so you feel bigger than what your revenue would actually suggest, or your head count would actually suggest, whatever it is. So when you're thinking about the size of your organization, this is going to be something for you to scope. But typically what we look at with clients, when we're trying to figure out the depth of the signals that we want to provide and the analytics and the depth of the analytics that we want to go into, is we're thinking about headcount overall. Headcount for the entire company, but also for the specific organizations or divisions within the company that have to do with signals directly. So sales, marketing, and RevOps are typically the three that we look at. If those are gigantic, then obviously we're going to weigh that a little bit heavier than the overall headcount of the company. And then revenue as well. So when we're talking about revenue, it could be for the entire company, depending on how big you are. If you're a smaller company, that would be more relevant. If you are an enterprise and you have massive amount of revenue across the entire company, this might not be relevant because in reality, you only have a slice of that revenue that you're in control of and you can impact. And everything outside of that wouldn't be relevant to the project at hand. And so you would only be looking at the revenue of the part of the organization that's relevant to you. So the bigger you get, the more fragmented that might get. You might be looking at a specific revenue measurement for a specific line item rather than for the entire company. And then last but not least, budget under your control. So this changes the calculation a lot as well. This is headcount and campaign spend. So it's your headcount resources and the budget you have to spend on everything else. And so depending on how much that is, this is going to influence what you should and can do with signals. So budget is a little bit more flexible usually because you can bump that up and down depending on your results. But you want to keep this in mind because even if you're making $50 million a year as a company, but your budget is $500,000 total for the people who would be using the signals and signal analytics, then obviously it's a little bit different of a calculation than a $50 million company and you have a $10 million budget. So those differences will determine the size and you'll be able to figure that out. And so when it comes to signals, you probably already saw the next slide. When it comes to signals at different size companies and which ones are right for micro, small, medium, large, and gigantic, it's the worst type of answer, which is it depends. And so it's shitty when people answer this, and so that's why I put this graphic here. But it's the truth. It's the truth. You have to see what your specific situation is, like we were going over with the last three categories there for the size company and how you would categorize the size of a company. And so it's the same with signals. You have to look at your specific situation and see where you're at and then determine what is correct for you. And on top of that, there's other questions that matter. It's not only about the size of the company, it's also about, do you have products or service market fit? If you do not have product or service market fit, signals are not going to be very useful in a lot of cases because you don't even know who you're selling to, what you're selling, and that it works that way. Now, you can use signals to experiment, and we'll get into that in another video. And so you could use a light version of signals to see if you have product or service market fit, but it's really not worth it to measure it, in my opinion, until you start seeing traction. And all that can be done without setting up a whole system to collect data in a very automated and formal way. You could just use spreadsheets, and then you could just look back and see what you've been successful with and what you haven't been. It can be more of a manual process. And so no product, service, market fit, you have to focus on that first. You shouldn't be doing a bunch of analytics type stuff. Number two, what is the complexity of the customer journey? So if you are a very small company, $1 million in revenue, and you have an incredibly complex customer journey, you're going to have little value in using a high detail or a very detailed signal analytics setup because there are so many data points. You are not big enough right now to have a significant lift in revenue because of using signals. And so you should focus on other things first, scaling a specific channel or something similar to that before you get into the detailed signal analytics. Now, like I just said, you should be focusing on scaling something scaling a very specific channel or strategy or campaign. And you can use broad level signals for that. but you don't need to be going into the very nitty-gritty details of every step of the customer journey if you have a complex one. If you have a simple one, then it's much easier. If you have a very straightforward go-to-market motion, then you will not need to have as many types of signals. It can be a much more straightforward approach, and so you can knock it all out in a much quicker and simpler manner than someone who has a very complex customer journey. 3, what is the current state of your data infrastructure? This is a really big one that people often miss because they think they have things in a good condition to build on top of, but in reality, you go and look underneath and it's a nightmare. It's just held together by duct tape. And so when we're talking about data infrastructure, depending on the size of your organization, this could have a pretty high complexity need, or it could be something very simple. It could be something as simple as the data quality within your CRM. It could be as simple as the data quality inside of your marketing tool. It depends on who you are. But overall, you want to make sure that your data infrastructure is in a good foundational state to begin building on top of. And so a lot of times with our clients, it's not perfect when we're going into it. And so there is some foundational work that needs to be done in terms of cleaning up data in the CRM, structuring things, and maybe changing some processes around how sales and marketing collects data so that you can use signals better. And then for more complex use cases, you're talking about setting up certain types of tracking on their site and CDPs, so customer data platforms, where you're sending tons of data back and forth to your other systems and to databases so that you can set up dashboards in BI systems with. And so it really depends on the level that you're at, what you'll need in terms of data infrastructure. The one thing is that you can't be operating off of all these spreadsheets everywhere, and you can't be pulling data out of systems, updating it somewhere else offline, and then uploading it somewhere else at a much later time. Because if that's your process, then signals will just never work, and you're better off doing some other type of analysis. So something to keep in mind, you need a good data infrastructure. At least start with a good data quality within your CRM. 4, how much existing budget do you have for an implementation? If you have no money or time, because we're talking about time here as well, then you can't do it. If you have a little bit of time, you can get some high level things in. You can focus on some data quality issues that you might have, and then nail into specific problems you might be facing and look for the signals and try to get the signals around those specific problems. If you have a bigger budget, you can go for the whole enchilada. You can do a very detailed customer journey with every single signal that you ever wanted to capture that's able to be captured, and then you can provide dashboards and everything else on it. So that's going to also determine how you use signals and the depth of signals. And last but not least, will other organizations be stakeholders? If you are doing this on an island, it can still be useful. It's going to have less of an impact overall. You do not want to be marketing, setting up all of these signals, which should span across the sales process as well, and then not involving the sales team and sales leadership in this. And same with RevOps. If you're RevOps, you should be obviously communicating with marketing and sales if they're separate from your organization, and telling them and communicating with them and bringing them in to actually have input on these signals, because everyone has a different understanding of the customer journey. So this is a big, big one that often people miss. You need to have the different perspectives in there because they know a different set of signals than you will. RevOps will know different signals than marketing. Marketing will know different signals than sales. From our other videos, we talk about how signals can be something as subtle as body language. Only sales is going to know that unless marketing is speaking directly to customers, which would be great. And same with RevOps. RevOps doesn't necessarily have insight in bigger organizations into the signals that marketing and that sales are seeing. RevOps sees data and they'll see their own signals, but marketing might not be capturing certain qualitative and quantitative signals in the systems that you're working with. And the same with the sales. So keep that in mind. And so we come with a table. And the question is, should you do signal analytics? And the topic is listed here on the left. And then yes is you should, no is you shouldn't. And so if you have yes in every single one of these topics, then you're good to go. If you have a few no's, then maybe you have to really limit what signals you're going to use. You're going to stick with the very high level signals. You're not going to get into the really, really detailed ones. And so first one is product service market fit. if you have that, like we said, yes, you're a fit. If it's a fit, you're a fit for signal analytics. Number 2, customer journey is complex. So if yes, it is complex, then there's a good chance we shouldn't be doing signal analytics to a very deep degree. We should stick at a very high level. So this should really be a maybe. This shouldn't be an X. If your journey is complex, it's going to depend on the actual size of your organization and the amount of revenue you're bringing in, because you'll get those incremental lifts in revenue with very detailed signals. But if you're smaller, then the impact of having very detailed signals is not going to be as high. So if no, you do not have a complex customer journey, then you're good to go on signals. So checkbox, good to go. Use them. You can probably get deeper in it, because if your customer journey is simple, then you'll have less signals. Data infrastructure is reliable and accurate. Yes, then you're good for signals. No, fix your core problems first. You got to set the foundation before you build the building. You have, I don't know what I said here. You have a budget what I'm trying to say here is you have a budget of several weeks of time or money. So if you have the equivalent budget that would allow for weeks of labor, then you can do this. Yes, you have that budget. Signal analytics is a good fit. No, you don't have it. I wouldn't recommend getting into it then. Use your current methods. Maybe try to do a higher level analysis if you have the time. But signal analytics might not be right at all. And then the last one on here, other organizations will be stakeholders. So if they are going to be, yes, go ahead with it. No is a maybe, because you can still get some impact and some lift if you are just marketing and focusing on just marketing signals. You won't have as good of results if you worked with the entire pipeline, the entire customer journey, including sales. But you'll at least be able to improve your metrics, and hopefully that means it'll have a trickle-down effect on sales. Exception to that is if you're just pumping in random leads, but with signals, you're not looking at just leads, you're looking at the entire pipeline, revenue generation, closed won revenue, and so you should see lift still from that. So hopefully this was not too confusing. This yes and no column is whether or not you answer yes or no to this topic, and then the checkbox or the X is whether or not you should use signal analytics. And so we have another table here. How deep should you go with signals? And so we went through all those checks and X's before. If you fit all of those, then you're good to go. And then right now we have this company size breakdown. This is like what we talked about before. Remember, you can be micro in a large organization, or you could be more of a medium in a small organization, depending on how your company is built. So if you have a tiny budget and you're in a big organization, you're really more around micro size. So this should be more like size of your scope, something like that. Not the whole entire company size. So let's say you're micro, depth of signals. We want to keep it very, very high level. That means you're really just seeing the broad signals in terms of the channels, the campaigns that you're running, and keep it on the very top level metrics. So the easiest signals you can measure, what revenue that leads to, what the customer acquisition cost is, what the lifetime value is, broken down by the highest level signals that you can define. Small would be broad plus one detailed channel customer journey. And so this would be your high level signals. And then you would want to take the largest channel in terms of the amount of produced revenue, and you're going to want to be very detailed with that specific customer journey and measure all of those signals along the way. And so usually when you go into this one detailed channel and you figure out all those signals, they apply to other channels as well. And so you'll be able to apply this across more channels that you're going to market in. And then you'll also have your broad overall metrics around your signals tied back to your financial performance. And so you'll get a broad idea of the high level signals that are working. You'll get a detailed level idea for one channel, every single signal along the customer journey, which ones indicate that the person is converting to the next step in the customer journey, which signals indicate that people are dropping off in the next step of the customer journey. So you'll have your top positive and top negative signals like we've been talking about. Medium here is broad plus 3 detailed channel customer journeys. And so when we're talking about micro, small, and medium, typically what we see is micro is anything under 5 million in like a very standard B2B type company. Even that type of categorization is kind of rough there, because like we talked about, 5 million in revenue might not mean anything. But let's say you're a standard company, standard profitability, 5 million a year in revenue, keep it high level. Small would be somewhere between 5 and 10 or 5 to 15 from what we're categorizing it as. They usually have one channel that's working really well. They've been able to scale it. They have product market fit for that channel at least. And for the ICP they're currently targeting, doesn't mean they're going to stick with that same product or service. But typically we would consider this small until we go really deep on one channel like Facebook, and then get every single signal with that customer journey of people who come in through Facebook. If it's a funnel driven from Facebook, we're going to look at every touch point along the way and every conversion point along the way. Medium would be something above that, so 15 to 50 usually. And for these companies, typically we see more channels that have been successful in terms of their outreach, and so they might have some type of outbound channel. They also have a paid channel, and then sometimes they'll have a third one, whether that's some type of organic or some type of referral type channel. And so we'll look at those customer journeys and find out all the top positive and negative signals along the way. Large would be anything over that, 50 million, can go even higher. There's not really we haven't worked with too many of the really big companies. We worked with one jumbo, and then probably no large, actually, 50 million and above. Yeah, everything's been under 50 million or multi-billion-dollar companies. So we don't have any in this area here. So I would take this part with a grain of salt, but it should be comprehensive in terms of your signal setups, meaning that you should have coverage over all of your customer journeys, all of the broad, high-level signals that you can measure, because you would want full coverage. You have enough to invest in this type of setup and keep an eye on exactly what's going on, identify the winners, cut the losers type thing, and also be able to measure experiments really effectively. And then jumbo here is these multi-billion-dollar corporations, and these are granular and intricate because typically we're talking about a specific part of the organization who has a larger budget, who really they know their processes, they have a bunch of complex systems already set up. They might not be set up well, things might be messy, but they still have all these resources there. And you're wanting to measure every single thing you can, because the lift possibility is much greater if you can get a bigger winner or even a small winner. The percentage gain, I didn't phrase that correctly. If you can find one winner, you can lift revenue by a significant amount just with that one winner, and the more data points you have, the better in that situation, just because you have the capabilities to measure everything, and you can really dig into each and every single interaction that the customer is having, and you can technically have the resources to make modifications to your processes and to your channels to take more advantage of that when you have that set up. So hopefully that part was a little bit useful to give you a better idea of what is the right level of the depth of the signals depending on the size you are at. So this one was a little bit rough, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I did very well on this one, but if you could take one action, like, comment, share in a company chat, comment if you can roast me and say I'm stupid on something here. I feel like I blabbed a lot today, I don't know, but do one of those, I would really appreciate it. And so now last time I said real life case story of signal analytics in action, and I forgot when I made this today. So we're gonna do that next time, tomorrow here. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe on the channel or in the link via the description for emails. Thanks for watching, I'm Dan Saavedra.